Say welcome to everybody. I'm glad you decided to spend some time with us today and look at how to simplify your Inventor workflows with iLogic. You know, that's the official title to this presentation, but in my mind, I've always called this iLogic for everyday tasks. Real quick on our agenda, we're just going to take a few minutes for our introduction this morning. We're going to focus a little bit of time on what iLogic is and specifically how you can get your head around it, how you can learn it. And then we're going to take several examples of how iLogic can be used to help you every day. We want to minimize the impact of those repetitive or daily tasks that you have to do over and over again. And if we can get finished in time, we'll have some time for questions at the end of our process. So I mentioned my name's Rusty Belcher. I've been working with IMAGINiT, coming up on 25 years working with Inventor. And it wasn't till, I think the factory design utilities was probably for me back in 2012. It was the first time that I was forced to look at iLogic. I think I'm a typical CAD user. I'm good with the buttons, and I'm good with the software. But when you threaten me with code, I get a little intimidated. So, but I did find a few nice little iLogic rules that I could use in my factory design utilities. And I kept talking about it, and finally I got caught. IMAGINiT, one of the folks asked me to teach the iLogic class. That was about 2 years ago. And I taught the iLogic class, and I was surprised at really how straightforward it was. I don't like to say simple, but it is absolutely a very straightforward process. So if you're new to iLogic, if you are like me and you're intimidated by code, don't worry. We're going to keep the code stuff incredibly simple today. I like to say we're going to stay inside of Inventor. We're not going to be working with the open API. We're not going to be using VB or scripting or things like that. We're just going to be using the basic iLogic functions today. And I think even if you've never done it before, I hope at the end of this you'll see really how easy iLogic can be. So iLogic is Autodesk Inventor's method to automate design tasks and create design rules that help drive the model to the geometry that you desire. You'll hear terms like, if I do this, then I want you to do this. Or I want you to do this if I do this. Or you might find a select case. Hey, if I pick this parameter, then do this. If I click this parameter, do this. And it's not just one thing. You can click a parameter, then many things can happen. So if I change it from, I like to say the mama bear, baby bear, papa bear. If I pick baby bear, then all the parameters go to their small values. If I pick mama bear from the drop-down list, then they get their minimum values. If I pick Papa Bear, they get their large values. So iLogic is a great tool to enforce design rules in your design. You'll hear things like, hey, if the part gets longer, then I need holes. If it's short, I don't need holes. So feature suppression, things like that are certainly easy things to do with iLogic. But I wanted to focus this presentation on the day-to-day tasks that we run into, like filling out your description or making sure your I properties are filled in correctly. Or, hey, I don't want you to ever change the material type for this part. It's really essential that the material type be a certain value. So we're going to focus on how you can use iLogic for your everyday tasks. Now listen, iLogic is capable of doing incredibly advanced design configurations and automations. Through the iLogic platform, you can get into the API and you can cause things to happen, and we can go to the API of other programs. Listen, I am not a programmer. All right, I am an Inventor user. So we're going to keep these examples today very basic in nature. So this is kind of an entry-level examination of what iLogic is capable of doing. So absolutely, there's probably people on this call that are more capable programmers than I will ever be. But hopefully you'll learn something as well as we go through the examples in today's training class. Before I get started, I kept all of the examples. So all the examples I'm going to show you today are examples that are part of our Inventor for iLogic class. So if you're interested, at the end of this session, I'll mention this again, but if you're interested in learning, actually taking the 2-day introductory course, you can go to IMAGINiT.com, find the information there. Or if you have our advanced support, the Productivity Now, if you have the advanced level of that, then the information I'm going to give you is in our Productivity Now panel. So there's 2 ways to get this this training information if you're interested in doing this yourself. So I wanted to focus on a couple of examples of how I use iLogic every day. And the first one I'm going to do is it's a simple little thing. I've got a complex part I'm going to upload into Inventor, and I need to determine the bounding box of this thing. I want to machine this, whatever this part is, and I need to know what size blank material do I need to cut in order to get this part done. So I'm going to hop over into Inventor. Now, I'm going to start a new file, and I absolutely believe in using custom part templates. So I've got this common part area, and I'm looking for my bounding box template. So this is one thing I do. I create part templates for certain tasks. So I'm going to go into this task here, or into this template, and this template has some 3D annotation that's already built into it. And there's a code in the iLogic background that's going to find the length, width, and height of my bounding box, as well as my center of gravity. So how do I bring the part in? Well, I use the derive command. If I'm working with just an Inventor file, I'm going to bring in my skull part. And through derive, you can actually select the bounding box of the part. So we'll click OK. So Inventor will give me the bounding box, but it doesn't necessarily tell me how big it is. And I don't want to measure. But right now I can see that the length, width, and height in the CG is filled in automatically. Hey, I appreciate you guys being here. I'll give you another little tip here. So watch this. You can derive multiple parts, and you can also derive the same part twice. So if I bring in the skull again, let's go ahead and bring it in again. And I'll just use the full version of it. This basically gives me 2 bodies. And I can select the first body, and let's give it a color. So how about something we can see through, clear blue. There you go. So there's the bounding box around the part, the size that I need. I picked a complex part, so I wanted to see if this would work correctly, and it does. It gives me that information. Now, how does this work? All right. So that's the daily task chore. So I have my iLogic browser pulled up here. So your iLogic browser tab is how you can interact with the iLogic. And here is this, look, here's this really complex rule, right? Let's look at it. I'm going to right click on it and edit it. So here is the iLogic editor. Look at all that. Look at all that. That's it. 10 little lines, and I have this anytime I need it. So in the iLogic editor, this is where you write your iLogic rules or your iLogic processes. You write it in this particular window right here, but surrounding this window is all of your support information. I remember back in the AutoCAD days when I tried to learn Lisp, and this was like early on in the internet days. So there wasn't, I mean, we're talking message boards. You had to go up and just find people who knew what certain codes were, and you spend more time looking for the handle or the function and trying to figure out how you had to type it in, what was the syntax and all of that. And it really did defeat me back then. I'm not a code guy. But you have all of these snippets off to the side. These are predefined little arguments and handles that you can add to your code. So for parameters or features or Excel data links or message boxes or forms, you have so much information right inside of this dialog that's already pre-written for you, and you can just add it to your design as you go. And the more you use it, the more you'll grow with it, and it's extremely straightforward and repeatable. I hate to say simple and easy, but it is. It's quite easy to use. You can access your user parameters, your model parameters, any linked parameters right up here at the top. And by double clicking those elements, I can add them instead of typing them in. So the rule editor is a very, very nice way to build this. Now, I probably picked a little complex rule here, and I'll tell you, confess to you, I didn't write this. I was watching Neil Cross on his YouTube channel, and he pulled this up and he showed it, and I thought, that's awesome. That's exactly what I'm looking for. And then he credited somebody for coming up with the original code, but very elegant. But here, that measure, that precise measurement example here, I mean, how did he know how to type that in? Well, over in the snippets, there's a measure folder, and you can come down and you can get the extent limits for length, the extent limits for width, and the extent limits for height. It's right there. Double click it, add it to the list, and you got it. So that's my first example. All right, something I think want to start something. I think everyone on the call probably has done something like this before in the past. I'm going to close that one out. Save it. And let's jump back over into PowerPoint. So the next example, you guys know, do you guys know what a useless box is? This is it's a gimmick. It's a little box, and there's a switch on it. And if you flip the switch, usually some kind of critter or finger will come out of the box and flip the switch back. And no matter what you do, you flip that switch again, another finger will come out and flip the switch back. And that's all it does. You flip the switch one way and it flips it back. And they're quite interesting and kind of fun to watch and things like that. But in our daily lives, we have many things that are like that useless box. For example, you ever created a part for your users and for some reason, they go up and change the material. And they want it to be chrome and shiny, right? But they don't go to the appearance, they go to the material and they pick silver. And that throws off all of the material standards in the file. So as a CAD admin, you might say, look, I don't ever want you to change that material ever again. I want to prevent you from changing the material. So let's hop into Inventor. I've got that part here. And there, it's steel carbon. It's right up here in the list. Steel carbon is already set, ready to go. And okay, let's change the material. I know I'm not supposed to do it, but let's do it. So let's go up here. We'll make it, I don't know, about titanium. I click titanium. I don't know if you saw it, but it swapped to titanium and then immediately went back to steel carbon. So I could come back and try silver. Nope, back to steel carbon. I could come back and try, I don't know, galvanized. Nope, steel carbon. So how is this happening? All right, so it's iLogic. I've got an iLogic rule. So you guys ready to see this really complex rule? I'm going to right click and edit the rule. Look at that. One line. I went to the I properties. So there is a snippet for I properties. Right there. And I went and grabbed the material. And you set this equal to steel, comma, carbon. That's the exact name of the material up here. You put the little quotation marks. It's anything text. You put the quotation marks around it. It's something you'll learn in the introduction class. That's it. That's the rule. One line. If I close this, there's one extra thing you do. On the Manage tab, there is this iLogic panel. And on the iLogic panel, here, I think I can do this. So, on the iLogic panel, there's this thing called Event Triggers. So under Event Triggers, you can take the rule and make it run automatically when certain things happen. So I have this rule that sets the material to the given value, and you put it down here under Material Change. So anytime there's a material change, it runs the rule and it sets the material back to what it's supposed to be. So now I don't have to worry about my users, the material, when they're not supposed to. When I saw that in the class, when I was teaching the class and I was studying for the class, I thought that was amazing. I could have used that in so many different areas working with Inventor over the years. All right, let's look at another example. How about eye properties? You ever have people forget to fill in their eye properties? It's rhetorical, right? It happens all the time. This is, you know, the modeling is easy. It really is. We've gotten to the point where modeling is, that's the easy part. Filling in all the data, that's what takes forever. So I wanted to create a rule that at least fills in my blank eye properties instead of it being completely blank. You know how you fill in like the old AutoCAD title blocks? There's like, there used to be X's there, but then the protection filters wipe that out. So they pre-put numbers there, and you can just type in the typical numbers and like old attributes, and it supplies the format. So that was the idea of this. I want to fill out the eye properties with the basic information. So back in Inventor, I've got that file. And if I go over here to eye properties and just real quick and check it, you know, it's empty. It's what it is, like it normally is. You know, no one ever fills out the title and the subject, the company, all of that. That never gets filled out. And then the thing that gets me, and when I teach the basics class, I always mention you gotta fill out your description. If you don't, your parts list is you'll just have to come back and fix it later. But all of this is blank. Now, in iLogic, I have these rules stored locally, but it is possible to store these rules. There's a little flyout over here. You can store them externally. So they don't have to be in the file for you to access these things. But these are local. You can store them external. But there's fill properties. Look, right click, run rule. Done. That's all it takes. I could go back to eye properties over here, go back to my summary, and I see everything's filled in. I've got it mapped so the file name becomes the title. You know, the file name is normally the part number. But what if you wanted the file name to be something else? All right, I've got that figured out. I've got everything filled out in here. My comments are filled out. The comments, so it doesn't make a lot of sense now, but it's the part number, it's the stock number, and then the description. That's what that is. There, if I hover over it, part number, stock number, description, and rev number. The project tab, I filled everything out. The part number in this case needs to be a 7-digit number. I've got my stock number. My description says, please fill this information out. And I've got the other data filled in as well. Well, how about just the opposite? What if somebody sent you a part? Somebody sends you an Inventor part and it's got their data in it. You want to erase their data and replace it with your data. So I made a rule for that too. Blank properties. I could right click and run that rule, and then select the properties and they're blank again. So let's look at the code. All right, here's the fill properties if I edit the rule. Now again, don't freak out. You saw that one line previously about the eye properties for material. This is the I properties for title, the I properties for subject, manager, company. They're all over here. Or you can see the format, right? The title's there, but I don't see company. But there, you see the format. You can rewrite the format yourself. So there's the first page on the summary properties. There's the little line that takes this document file name and without the extension. That's how that works. That's down here in the snippets as well, in this document area. But there it is. It just fills out the data with what I want it to say. Close that one. And if I look at the blank properties and edit that rule, it's the same rule, except there's nothing between the quotation marks. They're blank. Again, once you learn where to grab this information and get it into your rule, man, very easy to use. All right, how about a little bit of a different take on it? I've got a proprietary design, and it's really important for me, if I'm going to share this design with somebody, that I warn them, listen, if I give this to you, I don't ever, I have some content protection notes that I really do need to go with this part. Sometimes the warning is quite extreme. Sometimes not so much, and sometimes we really don't care if they reuse the part or not. And in this particular example, the warning is quite long. And what I did is I just started an Excel table, and I've got my warnings over there. You might have general notes over there, things like that. But I have an Excel table with simple things that I quite often put into my iProperty cells. So let's look at this one. So I'm going to open up our design. Again, this is a strategically important part for our company. We don't want this to just get out into the public, or we certainly want to warn people if they do use it in their model that it's quite dangerous, and they just need to be aware of what's going on. I call it content protection. So I have a parameter set for this. Now, one of the things with iLogic is you'll learn to create parameters. So if I go to my parameter table, I'm just filtering out. I'm just showing the good ones right now. So I have this text parameter for content protection. It's a text parameter. You can add numeric parameters or text parameters or true false parameters. And on this one, I have it set to extreme or moderate or none. Let's set it to none. I click done. I can go over, and I'm going to go back to my I properties again. That's just where I'm working today. And on my summary and my comments, it says, hey, use this component at your own risk. We really don't care. I'm not worried about you using this. But let's go back and change this to moderate. Let's go back to our I properties. Yeah, please request permission before using this component. Misuse may have serious repercussions. We'll do finally the extreme. Go back to I properties. So use of this component without explicit permission is punishable by death or elimination from the space-time continuum. So I'm being a little silly, but you guys have similar things that are going on. You guys have certain criteria or certain property information that has to be in your design. And you can organize that in something like an Excel spreadsheet and then use iLogic based on a parameter and pull it into the specific cell that you want it to appear in. So again, let's take a look at the code. We'll go back over to the iLogic. There's just one rule here, so we'll edit the rule. Now, this one uses a couple of things. It uses the Go Excel. It's using the Excel linking data. So there's snippets for linking to Excel. Quite nice. So basically, you establish what Excel table or what Excel file you want to work with. You set that up, and then you do an if-then statement. So the if-then statements are already kind of written out for you. You can add them to your design very easily. But it says, hey, if that parameters are in blue, if the content protection parameter equals extreme, then go to the iProperty value for comments, go to Excel and get cell A1. All right, and then the next one is else if content protection equals moderate, then go to Excel for comments and get A2. And you can see how it works. Once you learn how to read these things, I think once you learn the syntax of the argument, the layout of the argument, once you learn that, you're good to go. You're ready to go. This is not scripting. I use scripting a lot in AutoCAD because I could read it. And this is not code that I'm used to. I can actually read this. So, if the iProperties for comments, if the content protection parameter is none, then the iProperty value for comments, go to Excel and get A3. And at the end of this, you got to close the Excel file. The hardest thing about this was typing in the name or getting the name of the file all the way, because I'm using my Dropbox and my storage area, so I just had to map it over there. But that was the hardest part of this. I really do think you'll be surprised when you look at iLogic, just how simple and straightforward it actually is, and the fact that you can do this. You absolutely can. All right, so we had some fun with that one. Let's take a look at the next example. All right, I mentioned this one earlier. This is a pet peeve of mine. All right, you gotta fill in your description. So how can I make people fill in my description? I gotta force it. I got people that I work with that just won't do it. Well, you can create your own little dialog boxes, and you can create your own little warning windows. And you can set up scenarios that kind of force the user to do what you want them to do. Let's take a look at that example. In this particular one, I don't want the user to save without filling in the description. So if I go to my iProperties and I look, if I go to the project tab, there's no description here. So here, let's try to save it. Reach up and click save. I get a warning. I don't know if you guys heard that, the big ding. You can control this dialog box. You can control the symbol there. There's several symbols you can use, but the warning says you've got to fill in your description. So when they click OK, a form appears. So all they have to do is, there it is. They don't have to go to iProperties. I gave them the description cell so that they can fill that in. All right, whatever that is, it's now ready to go. And again, you can just check from the project tab. There it is right there. The real question is, how did I ever save this file to begin with? I actually saved it without the description. I'm really not sure how I did it, but I don't know. I'd have to dig in and remember how I actually saved it without the description the first time. But I think I turned the rule off, saved it, and then we'll see how it goes. But that's the real question about how this works. But no, let's take a look at the code real quick. All right. So the code is, I think, fairly simple. Hey, it says if the iProperty value for description is blank, then run this message box. Oh, how do you make a message box? Look, there's up here in the wizards, there is a create message box wizard. The tool will actually help you make your own message box. It's really, really nice. So you can have it say what you want it to say. And then I also created a form for this one. That's the form, that little cell that appears as a form. I'm going to talk about that in the next example. But again, if I close this, I did go to the Manage tab in the Event Triggers. And I believe filling in the description is before you save the document. Really? When you save the document, it runs the rule. Fill in your description. It is not that difficult to get your head around the iLogic functionality. All right, let's close that one. I've got one more example for today. Now, this is my big one. So I'm going to spend a little bit more time on this one. So in this scenario, we've got a typical part that we make. So you might make 30 or 40 of these a day. So I want to use my template workflow. I want to have a predefined template that has all the information built into it. I need to access the parameters of this box: length, width, height, the hole diameter, the thickness of the material. I need to access the material. There's parameters for that. There's different materials we make this out of. There's different customers that we make this part for. And on top of all of that, we've got this new etching tool out in the shop. So we've taken to etching all of the information on the part. It's kind of like that, like the cart and the horse, or which comes first, the chicken and the egg. So I need to parametrically control the part, but one of the features in the part is the record of all the settings that I used. Well, iLogic can do all of this. It can even help you when in the etching tool or in text. It can read that information and put it into the text so that you can etch it on the side of your component. So this is another one that we're going to hop in and use a template for. So I'm going to go to New, my common parts. I've got my sheet metal box with the iLogic built into it. So you can look and see the etching. We'll focus on that first. I've got my customer name. And actually, it's an abbreviation of their name. I've got the material and the thickness, and then the part number. And then on top of that, we gave them the length, width, height, and the flange and the hole diameter. It's actually etched onto the part now. Now, I mentioned that you might get into a situation where you do many of these in a day. So you can imagine you've got a stack of orders, or you came in and you looked at the website and you've got a bunch of them to do, and you need to knock out these parts and get them sent out to the shop, to the laser cutter and the press brake. So in this example, when I go to iLogic, I chose to do a form. Now, I've done things with forms before. I've got other webinars where I mentioned that forms are very, very simple things to do. You actually don't even need to touch any kind of code at all to create a form. Look, here's my parameters. So on this particular one, parameters, this is, look here, let me show you all of them. So I really wouldn't want my users to have to go through all of this to find the key parameters that they need to change for the part. All right. You could filter it to anything renamed. That might make it a little better, a little easier, but I still want to look out for my end users. I want to provide a better experience. So one of the things you can do is create a form. So on the form tab here, you can add a form. Just right click, add a form. Here's the form editor. Here's all your model parameters. Here's your user parameters. You have access to your I properties, any rules that you want to use. But watch, here's this CD empty form. Here, I want to do length. I want to do width. I want to do height. It builds your form for you. Listen, I'm not going to, for time's sake, I can't go into just how easy this is, but this is not any kind of code whatsoever. This is just a nice form builder. So listen, if you have length, width, and height parameters, you can just build a form and access your parameters from a form. Pretty straightforward. I'm going to cancel this. I have the form done already. So let's take a look at that. Let's go to the containment box form. So when it comes to sizes, I do have the mama bear, baby bear, papa bear scenario. So I have extra large, large, medium, and small. So if I pick, it's at small right now, but if I pick medium and click apply, the part will update with all the necessary information. So there's the medium version. And if I look down, it's a 12 by 12, 2-inch flange, 3-inch diameter hole. All right, so I'm not going to go through all of them, but I have presets for extra large, large, medium, and small. But I also have custom. So if I select custom, I can come down and make my own lengths. Like maybe I want this to be 18 inches wide. I can click apply. And again, it'll cycle through all the rules that are in the background, and it'll update everything. Finally, just updated, it updates the etching last. So there is length 18 by 12, 1.5 flange. Look good, like I'd want it to be. But I also have things like aluminum. The material is here, the thickness is here. So maybe I want to make it out of 1/16 of an inch thick, galvanized. And then my customer, I have preset customers. So let's give it to brown. We'll make brown the customer today. And then the part number, 225. So again, if I pick apply, it'll recycle the part depending on all the rules in the background, and it'll update the etching finally when it gets finished. That feature takes a little longer, but the material changes, right? The customer, the material and thickness changed, all of this, and it's in this nice, convenient form. This makes my day-to-day life so much easier. Now listen, there's a good bit of iLogic in this one. So if you come to the iLogic class, if you want to participate in that, we do have exercises where we talk about generating the rule for material. This is a case selection. So the material parameter is there, and there's different cases. If you pick aluminum, then use this material. If you pick mild steel, use this one. Stainless steel, use this one. There's a drop-down list there, and you predefine those things. That's the select case scenario of an argument. I use that one a lot. There's appearances. If I edit the rule for appearances, it's the same select case. But you know, I don't know about you, but I don't like some of the colors, some of the appearances that the default materials have. So with aluminum, I want aluminum dark to be the color, the appearance. For mild steel, semi-polished. For stainless steel, chrome. For galvanized, I made my own galvanized texture, and I called that out. Again, once you learn the format of the rule, quite simple to do. I have the customer abbreviation. So look, the drop-down list says brown, then I want you to etch brown. But if it says alliance, I want you to etch ALL. Knight is KNI, the full word, but Stark is STK, Wayne is WYN, Golden is gold. These are things that, you know, when Grandpa ran the company, he established all of this stuff. We're just digitizing it now. And it fills out my eye properties. It fills out my size information. That's the thickness and the material settings and all of that for the background. So I've got all of these rules. And again, some of the event triggers. There's event triggers in this one as well. That happens when you execute the rule. So I hope you see, you know, the purpose of today's presentation was to show you that you can use iLogic for daily tasks, things that you do over and over again. You can make your life so much easier with a simple little form and a couple of iLogic rules. You can enforce your design standards on your users just with a couple of little lines in the iLogic editor. can make it almost impossible for your users to break the standard. So that was the goal of our presentation and our time together today. I'm going to reiterate that you can learn how to do this. You absolutely can. Everything I showed you today, everything I showed you is mentioned in the iLogic book. I did not go into any API stuff today. I didn't go into any of that programming stuff. You guys, I'd have to go get a programmer to help me on a project like that. But I'm showing you stuff right from the lessons in that iLogic book. That iLogic course, it's a 2-day course. And today, you guys, I kept the examples all in the part level, but in the book, they use examples at the assembly level as well. And again, if you want to take the course, you can go to IMAGINiT.com, find that course, sign up for it. You can also, if you have PNOW, if you have our IMAGINiT support at the highest level, then you have full access to all our training content. And I checked yesterday, and the iLogic course is part of that. So you might already have access to that material if you're using the PNOW support from IMAGINiT. So listen, I appreciate the time that you guys have given me today. I really would encourage you, especially if you've used Inventor for a while and you're looking to broaden your use of it and you're looking to make it easier, you'd certainly want to check out iLogic. And the idea here is that you could use it every day. So listen, I'm sure you've got questions. So at this point, Lori, let's go ahead and see if we can't answer a few of those.